Welcome back. You're still watching Beautiful Day. This is Weather HQ. Now, every life matters, and every conversation about mental health can make a difference. Now, this World Suicide Prevention Week, we're putting the spotlight on awareness, understanding, and hope. To help us talk about how we can all play a part in prevention, we are joined via Zoom by Mr. Toffie De Jesus, clinical psychologist at East Avenue Medical Center and a member of the Dementia Society of the Philippines. Magandang umaga, Sir Toffie, and welcome to Beautiful Day.
Hi, good morning, Paolo. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, first of all, this is a very serious topic, World Suicide Prevention Week, and we talk about its importance all the time. Let's put it in a Philippine context, though. Why is it important to, one, highlight this World Suicide Prevention Week, and at the same time, how big of a problem is it in the Philippine context?
Yeah, actually, here in the Philippines, it's already been an increasing trend that a lot of Filipinos have been opting to undergo suicide as a source of solution or relief from the stress that they're having with everyday life.
Mhm.
So, since 2010, that number has been increasing, and at the same time, the demographic has become broader, given the fact that even younger individuals now opt to do that as a response to their situation. So, as of now, all the more that this prevention is very much necessary because, as you know, one life lost to suicide is already one life too enough. Okay, it's
Mhm.
already one life too much. So in that situation, we are now really campaigning as part of the DOH's program to ensure that suicide does not become the standard in which Filipinos would have to respond to their situations. And at the same time, we are then really fostering peer-to-peer counseling, peer-to-peer facilitation, because we are empowering people to understand that suicide may be prevented, and at the same time, options are available on how to properly manage the situations that you're going through, and that there is more effective reactions that can be done by the individual.
Sir Tofi, I want to talk about people who know those who are struggling with suicidal thoughts, with self harm. What are the most common misconceptions do people have about those individuals, those types of individuals who have thought about suicide or are struggling with those thoughts?
Okay, coming from an observer's perspective, most people assume that your capo or your fellow person is okay. They're doing fine. He's gonna be fine. He's gonna be okay with that. He can then jump back to his feet. And in that situation, that is very critical now because that is the junction where in which that person might decide differently on the way that he would react to the situation.
Mhm.
Sometimes we then tend to ignore certain signs like calls for help, calls for assistance, maybe some level of getting or trying to get attention from the social media. We then try to invalidate that. We try to say, hey, you know what, he's just acting up. He's just trying to get our attention. But that's the point. If a person already uses this kind of medium in order for us to get our attention, okay, then it is very important for us to then start our intervention. By doing so, we need to understand that, hey, you know what? We need to then take action out of it. We need to be curious, we need to be concerned, and we need to act immediately.
Mhm.
So in this situation, I often tell my patients, you always try the ORA method. So what is ORA? Observe, reflect, and ask. Observe what the person is doing, reflect it back to the person, and lastly, ask the person if there's something that you need to talk about. In doing so, there's now a structured way of you approaching the person so that it doesn't seem to be that you're just trying to intrude to their privacy. The important thing here is that we are trying to empower people to be more concerned, to be more involved, because suicide is really preventable.
Sir Tofi, when we talk about some of the warning signs, na-mention niyo po kanina that there are moments wherein some people might seem okay. When we talk about any usual warning signs, siguro that some people may not notice, what might that be just so they can start yung observation and reflection, and of course, the action that you mentioned a while ago?
Okay, among them, Paulo, what you need to first understand is that there is social withdrawal.
Mhm.
People tend to distantiate themselves from the usual gang of people that they belong to. So it's like, for example, your friend does not opt to take lunch with you anymore, or perhaps they are not as engaging when they're doing their work. They are not as participative to group activities. So they tend to see that it's no more of a there's no use anymore of joining in these particular groups, and therefore it's better for them to just go their own way. In addition to that, there is a possibility that they are now trying to sell off certain things that belongs to them, or even worse, they give it away. So for example, there is a pair of rubber shoes that is the prized possession of this friend of yours, and then this person starts to give it away, then that's a good sign already. In addition to that, they tend to be more contemplative of themselves. They try to just work within their own selves. That's because they already might have lost the trust of
Mhm.
how other people could help them. You know, in suicide, there is this combination of helplessness and hopelessness. So, meaning the person feels that there is a problem, I could not solve this. I tried doing certain options, and yet it still failed. That's why I'm now getting to the point that I'm looking at suicide as the only sole remaining option that I have. So, if for example, you're seeing a family member who is not as participative, maybe for example, if you are working, maybe perhaps you are not anymore as enthusiastic with your job, or maybe in school as students, you would see that the attendance is failing, the grades are failing, talking with classmates has become less. So those are some signs that we need to be concerned about.
Sir Toffee, when we talk about mental health in the Philippines and of course seeking help from professionals in particular, minsan may stigma pa rin dun. I understand that there are more and more people who are more open, especially among influencers and those are trying to convince people that talking about mental health is more acceptable right now. But in your experience, is there still a stigma around mental health, especially when talking about suicidal thoughts, that stop people from seeking professional help?
Oh yes, I think that stigma is already embedded into our culture. You know, especially with Filipinos, since we are very collectivistic, we think that whatever we decide on whatever we say, might then affect the family that we belong to. That gives us that level of hesitation. So for example, if a person would say, hey, you know what, I have this serious problem, but I don't want to tell my mom because my mom might judge me. Or for example, I don't want to tell my dad because my dad is already working so hard. I don't want to encumber him with my personal problems. I don't want to be the source of the problem in the family. So those kind of thoughts very become so much stigmatic to the point that it then creates a wall between the person with the problem and the people who could have helped him or her. So yeah, stigma still exists. That's why we need to look at it from a community perspective. We need to understand that each and every person that we can have can be a support system for us. Each and every person can be a source of hope. Each and every person could then offer an alternative perspective to what we need to give to our patients so that they would feel that it's okay. And I often tell this to people, you know, when you are being approached by someone with suicidal intent, your response significantly matters.
Mhm.
The way that you accommodate them can spell the life or death that this person might face.
Toffee, when we take a look at the fact that you mentioned it a while ago, younger and younger people are turning to suicide. There is a rise still in terms of the numbers of suicides, and for various reasons. Some of them as simple as well, this is weather HQ. Some of them as simple as the the weather, how gloomy it is, or and it affects their own mood, and all of these different triggers. When we talk about encouraging open conversations about the things that actually trigger someone to having these sort of thoughts, how would you advise those who are concerned, those who want to help and really be more proactive in dealing with this problem to help other people? How would you encourage them to start?
Okay, I think the first step here is to be more open to what other people would have to say. The less judgmental we are, that would be a better step in terms of suicide prevention. We need to understand that the big problem that that person has may be not as big when it comes to your perspective, but you don't have to see it that way. Most people think that, you know, talking to people, engaging with others might not be effective because they think that this problem is only with me. This problem is only big on my perspective. But the point here is that if those people will be concerned, will then let go of that particular judgment. We need to understand that, hey, you know what, whether it's a big or a small problem, the mere fact that it bothers you, then we'll have to deal with it. The mere fact that, you know, something is really going on, then we need to address that. We need to understand that even though small cries for help become visible, we need to then give a full pledged commitment in terms of helping that. Now, besides our attitude, we need to also understand that networking is very important. We need to know who are the people who could help us. So our mental health practitioners, our psychiatrists, our psychologists, our registered guidance counselors. These three are the licensed professions. They are the regulated professions within the country. And they are the best people that could help us. You know, if you are a student right now, your guidance counselor is not there to scold you. Your guidance counselor is not there to just point out things that are wrong. They are really there to help, and they are trained to really ensure that your safety is a priority, your privacy and confidentiality is a priority. So I encourage students who are watching right now, maybe you're preparing for your school, you know, your guidance counselor is very helpful. And then we have your psychologist. You know, there are public hospitals that offer psychological services now. They are for free. And there are also NGOs that do this. So I think we just need to understand that this networks already exists. We need to then try to engage these services because these are readily available to help our kapwa Filipinos who are really distressed right now.
You know what, Sir Toffee, I think we could leave it at that because, of course, help telling people how they can reach out to the right professionals to try and really solve this problem and, of course, raise more awareness for suicides here in the Philippines. We really appreciate your time, Sir Toffee. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we can see you again soon and talk more about this issue in particular. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
He's Toffie De Jesus, a clinical psychologist. And of course, again, if you have any problems, he did mention where to go to, especially if you need professional help. So we do encourage everyone to go out there, stay safe, and of course, take care of yourself as well.